Today we will be making a weaving, an optical illusion weaving. So we are going to start with a black sheet of paper. You want it vertical in front of you, and you're going to take the bottom and fold it to the top. Get it as close as you can. It doesn't need to be totally perfect. And make sure this part that is facing you is the folded edge and the part facing away from you is the open edge. If you don't have it like this, it will not work. So really pay attention. Bottom is folded, top is open. Now, I have pre-cut paper strips for you, and I just want you to grab one, doesn't matter what color, and I want you to put it at the top of the paper here. So remember, this is an open edge, it goes at the top, and you're going to use this a little bit just like a straight edge or a ruler, and you're going to hold it down and draw a line across like that. Okay, so from there I'm going to fold this like a book, and I'm just going to do a little press. I'm not going to do too hard of a fold there. What that did is it gave me a middle crease, and I want to trace that middle crease. So you can use your strip almost as a ruler, or obviously you can use an actual ruler. So I make a line right in the center. Notice how I start at that top horizontal line and I just make a vertical line, right? The letter T. Alright, so now this is just, it's not going to be an exact science here. Now I want to make a diagonal line. So I'm going to come over maybe a finger or two, make a mark. And I'm going to slant this line. So remember, diagonal lines are slanted. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So a finger or two over here, and then slant this line. And you want them to be kind of as close to the same as they can. We are not perfect. They will not be perfect. Get them as close as you can. Then I'll go another 2 fingers and make another diagonal line. And the same thing over here. Okay, now what you need to know when you make this, notice how my outside lines, they did not go to the corner. You do not want these to go to the corner. They need to go to the bottom. They still are slanted and diagonal, but they are not going to the corner or to the side. They have to hit the bottom. So I'm going to show you why that is so you don't make this mistake. So here is just scrap paper. Make my line. So let's say I make this go to the corner and I make this one go to the corner. So eventually we are going to cut these to create our loom. Now when I open this up, do you see how the ones on the ends are not connected? Because I went to the corner. So if you go to the corner, that causes a problem, okay? But if you keep it where your lines just go to the bottom, that's not going to create a problem. So I'm going to go ahead, I keep this folded, and I'm going to cut on my lines. Now I stop at that top horizontal line. Don't cut past that. Alright, so what I've done is I've created a loom and I've created some warp strips. These are the strips that I need to weave into. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to start with my paper. So these are my weft strips. These are going to go across. And I'm going to go rainbow order here, so I'm going to start with red. When we weave, you are pretty much interlacing these through all of these strips. So we're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under. So I start over, I pick the second one up, I go under, over, under, over, under, and then you want to push it up as far as you can. Alright, so if I'm going rainbow order, next would be orange. Now because I started over the first time, the second one I have to start under. So when I start under, I actually have to start under on the edge here. Under, over, under, over, under, over. And I push that up. Next would be yellow. So now I'm going to go back to over, under, over, under. And it should start to look like a checkerboard a little bit. Okay, after yellow would be green. Now this one is under, over, under, over, under, over, blue, over, under, and violet, under, over. All right, so my rainbow colors have run out, so I'm just going to go back to the top, go back to red, and since violet ended under, I have to start over. So over, under, over, under. All right, so here on my weaving, I have a little bit more space here at the bottom to add one more, but I can tell it's just a little shy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it a little longer with my scissors. I'm going to just snip these to make them a little longer so I can fit one more strip in. If yours doesn't end up like that and yours really does go all the way to the end, then don't worry about it. But I had just a little bit more space that I wanted to fill. So this last one's always the trickiest one because you have to like get it right in there. So you can see an optical illusion forming, right? You can see how type of movement, like it's going woof, back into space, woof, coming out of us. It almost looks like a cube, and like this is the corner of the cube, and it's going back into space. It almost looks three-dimensional. So it's playing a trick on our eyes. We know it's not three-dimensional. It's two-dimensional, but it's an illusion. So make sure after you do all of your weavings, so I'm flipping it over to my pencil side, write your name, make sure that gets on there. And you need to glue down all the edges of your strips. If you don't glue these down, they will slide right on out. You do not need a ton of glue. Notice how I lift it up, I'm just doing like a little line. You don't need puddles. So you have to do it on both sides of the weaving. Do it front and back. Okay, now what I like to do here is I just like to look at my weaving, and if there's any little pieces I need to trim, I'm going to trim. So like my green here, it's kind of leaning off the edge a little bit, so I'm just going to, well, it's actually easier if I do it from the back. Just trim any little things, tidy it up a little bit. If you don't need to trim, good for you. Alright, so this is the weaving, or optical illusion weaving. So this is step one to our assignment. And then step two, we're going to do a little bit of drawing and pattern making. Alright, after you have finished your weaving, you're going to grab a sheet of colored paper. And we're choosing a color that we find in our weaving. So I chose violet. And you are going to glue your weaving to this paper. Now, what I would do is flip your weaving over. Do it on the side. You can see your pencil marks. Take a glue bottle and make a frame of glue all the way around. Don't go too close to the edge because we don't want it to spew out once we press it down on the paper. And then I like to do a wavy line all through the middle. Alright, now this is going to be a little tricky, so you want to be able to see the paper on every edge, so it's like you're giving it a frame. So when you do this, don't just slap it down there. Really, you gotta try to, I like to hover it over before I place it down. Now I can see the violet paper on the top, bottom, and the sides. And you want it pretty even. Now I'm laying it down. Looks good. Now I'm pressing it down gently. So now you can see a beautiful frame around the edge. Okay, so now that you have your weaving ready to go, you're going to get a white sheet of paper. Make sure you write your name on the back of this one before you begin here. Flip it over, and you're going to want to place your weaving on this white sheet of paper, and you want to eyeball this right in the middle. So again, it's like you're making another frame. Okay, so if you notice I have the equal amounts on top and bottom, side to side. It is not crooked. I'm going to lay it here, and I'm just going to use this as a stencil. And I'm just going to go ahead and trace around it, but I am not pressing very hard here. All right, so if I lift that up, I know it's very hard to see on the camera, so I'll go ahead and make it a little darker. Okay, I don't want you to make it darker though. I just did that so you could see it here on this video. So eventually we're going to glue this back onto here, like that, but we want to make a border around first. So I like to leave this off so I don't accidentally color on it. So I just set it to the side, and I'm going to create patterns and more design here on the frame. In the frame of my piece of paper, I'm going to decorate it using patterns. Now you can come up with your own patterns. I have this sheet of some patterns that can inspire you. These are all black and white, and then I also have this deck of cards that I have in the room. Now these are mine, you do have to give these back, so treat them nicely, but like on one side it shows you a pattern, and then when you flip it over it tells you how to draw that pattern. So those can be an option for you as well. So I like the look of black and white, but you are not required to do black and white. That's just what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to actually use this sheet here and kind of see which ones are sticking out to me, which ones I might want to try. Obviously some are more complicated than others, and you don't have to copy these directly. You could always just kind of get ideas and then go from there with your own imagination. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually breaking my frame up into sections on the sides here. And I'm doing this with a pencil. So that way if I don't like what I do, I can always erase. And I'm going to go ahead and just make a shape. So I'm going to like focus here on the first two. And I think I'll just make like a triangle on this side and then a triangle on this side. And then I'll focus on these two. Triangle, triangle. So what I'm doing is creating essentially a diamond. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Alright, so in this first shape I'm going to go ahead and color in my triangle black. And then on this one I'm going to leave the triangle white, color the background space black. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll color this triangle black. So when I do this, I just got to like pay attention to make sure I'm coloring in the right things. Alright, and so I'm just going over here. I'm making lines that go across. You don't have to do that. You can just stick to your border, but that's what I want to do here. Alright, and so now what I could do is I could keep going with this pattern and do this all the way on the top and the bottom, or if I want to, I could switch it up. So that's obviously your choice. So if you like what you're doing, keep going. It'll look really nice and cohesive. If you want to change it, go ahead and change it. So I'm going to keep working on this, and I'll show you when I'm a little further along. Alright, so you see I've started my pattern here on the bottom. Now I'm going to do this same pattern here at the top. And so what I did for this is like, I used this as inspiration to get an idea, but I didn't directly copy anything from here. So what I did is you can see I marked it out into little chunks of squares. And in each square, I did curved lines. So I kind of made a pattern. So I made an arch, and then I skipped one, and an arch, skip, arch, skip, arch, skip, and then I made a scoop or a letter U in the ones in between. Alright, after that is I colored in the area behind my lines. So my arch and my scoop, those are left white, but the area behind I'm coloring in all black. All right, and then what I did from there is I just made other scoops and arches. And then I'm making little lines with little circles in each of these, and that's essentially it. So I just kind of made up my own thing here, and I think it looks pretty cool. All right, and then what I'm gonna do for my last step is I'm gonna add just a little pop of color here on my corners. Obviously, you don't have to do anything like mine. I'm just showing you my idea. All right, now I have my beautiful design. I'm gonna get my weaving back in front of me, and I'm gonna go ahead and glue it onto the paper. So what I like to do is I like to put glue on the weaving itself, just so I know that it's all on there the right way. Make a frame, and then put some in the middle. Flip it over, and you want to try to line it up as best that you can. Now when you put it on and you can still see like a little bit of that white paper coming through, like that, then you can go ahead and like color a little bit more so it blocks it out. But mine's pretty good. I lined mine up pretty good. All right, so here is my optical illusion weaving all complete with not only optical illusion here in the weaving, but I'm also playing with illusions and patterns here in my frame. It's a very, very cool piece. All right, you are finished.